That's right, ladies and gentlemen of esteemed culture, Fire Force is so back for Season 3, and, well, it has been for a minute. But that's beside the point. You, my dear audience, who doesn't know shit about me yet, can pretend I made or that you are watching this before Season 3, right? Cool, now I'll show you how I painted Maki Oze from Fire Force.
A true knight ought to kneel when he speaks to a princess.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am It When It Do, and welcome to my studio, where I paint figures of mostly hot anime women right now. I swear I'm trying to expand soon. But this episode's going to be all about Maki Oze, the absolutely shredded sorceress of Fire Force Company 8, whom I am absolutely in love with, modeled by EC Monster, a Patreon that does many figures like this, so if you like how this figure looks, I recommend you check them out. To start, I had to do what is arguably the most important part of the whole project, which is post-processing, which is a fancy way of saying I gotta get all the ugly supports off whenever I 3D print these and make everything appear nice and smooth, which I didn't record for this video. Sorry about that. It is important though, and I had to do it so Maki can look extra nice at the end. And once I did that, I primed all the pieces so the paint can stick to it better. So with those steps conveniently done, the first step that you're seeing me do here is to paint all the parts that need black paint on them. I do this step first because it allows me to be lazier with the trim pieces and it's easier to paint back over. And now some of you more experienced artists out there, more experienced than myself, may look at this and think me an absolute caveman. However, I am but a baby boy artist that has absolutely no concept of color theory, so it's all matte black. My contrast is gonna go crazy style. In all honesty, I'm pretty happy with the black base, as it gives the feel of the nether environment, and the simplicity of the base doesn't take away from the figure itself. I would like to make the base a little more interesting, with coals or brick or something more reminiscent of the netherworld, but I may leave that project for perhaps when my artistic frontal lobe has developed a little bit more. Naturally, the next step with the base and boots done is to paint the legs. Most of this part consisted of grays, utilizing different shades for different sections, like the light gray I use for the flap on the front of the hips, and for the baggier sections of the pants I use a darker gray, which right now I'm using a lighter shade of it. It ends up being darker later because I realized I needed to go back and do that after looking at some reference images. In this section, I use a darker gray paint and a sponge to add some weathering effects to the cloth parts of her pants, which in the end will help the pants look more realistic. And in spots where I feel like I've put too much weathering, I'll just go back with a brush and cover it. Here is where I start to paint all the metal parts, such as the bolts that are on the knee flaps and the ones that are on the hip flap as well. And then I do a cheeky little ADHD and I start painting all the other metal parts, such as the hat and the collar, making them nice and shiny for the end product. I had initially started out by painting the hip flaps and the knee flaps a light gray, but after looking respectfully at some reference images, I noticed that they're a little bit more green. So I changed it. I added just a schmeckle of green to my gray, and it looks quite nice. And now, time for one of the more interesting... I watered the paint down too much. And now it's time for one of the more interesting sections of the video, the skin tones. Right about now, some of you might be thinking, my brother in Christ, she looks like Patrick Star right now. Yes? This is actually a technique I've seen other artists use that I think works really well. You start out with a pink underlayer, and what that does is it gives the skin color more depth, almost like there's actually blood underneath the skin. It makes the skin tones warmer. I think I did a okay job with it. The main issue with this is that I cover it up with the upper layers. I don't leave any of the pink behind. For the skin tones, I've been using the Fairy Flesh set by Vallejo. For the base skin tone, I use a mix between the highlight skin tone and the neutral skin tone. And for the highlights, I'd use just the highlight skin tone. For the darker, shadowy areas, I mix a little bit of the reddish skin tone into the paint. And as you can see here, I'm trying to paint some of that reddish tone into the crevices where the muscles are more defined. Now, I am a novice when it comes to airbrushing. This is the third figure I've used an airbrush for, so I do think I could have pushed my darks a little bit better, but I still absolutely love how this turned out. For the tank top, I use a darker gray, pretty close to black, being very careful not to paint over the skin tones, because it would be very hard to both paint over it and match the skin tone that I put on. this section it'll become clear why I painted the black base first, and that's because it allows me to be lazier with the trim. As you will see later, I will be very lazily putting the blue trim onto the jacket here, and it will be getting all over the black section. I would just go back over that with more black paint and call it a day. So with that, I'll leave you to see how I did the jacket. Alright, here it is, the face. I had to be very, very careful not to... Oh. Whoops. Alright, here we are. The final touches, her adorable fireballs, sputter, and flare. You might notice that they were printed with translucent resin. Good job! You might also notice that there is some color in the center. Good job! This was supposed to be a yellow-orange that would show through the orange alcohol ink, but it didn't. Bad job! I made it work anyway, like the expert baby artist I am. I used yellow acrylic over the orange alcohol ink, a very thin layer of it, so that I could get it to blend nicely into the orange. For attempt number 2, the other fireball, I was able to use full alcohol ink, putting yellow on the bottom and transitioning it to orange. This turned out a lot nicer than the first attempt. See, look how adorable these little guys are. And now, time for the reveal.
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever.
If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun painting Maki, and have been thoroughly enjoying Season 3 of Fire Force with her on my bookshelf. I know I didn't really treat this video as a how-to. It's meant to be more of a journal to note shortcomings I want to improve for future figures I paint. There is a lot here I feel like I could have improved, such as the lighting. For example, the fireballs would have cast some orange onto her hair and jacket. I could have done the glowing effects on her jacket a little bit better, and I did not go back and put the weathering onto the pants, or at least not in this lighting. This is something I love to do and very much want to get better at, referring to both the figure and the making of this video. In the meantime, if you would like and share the video, that would help me out a lot. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Bye-bye!